great narrative and keep it locked up inside yourself. So, okay, Davia, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you. Yay. Super excited. I'm super excited to be able to do this with you guys. Okay, so stories have power, right? I mean, the last however many hours we've been here, we've been hearing lots of people's stories. And some of them bring tears to our eyes. Some of them inspire us to action. Some of them open our hearts and make us just warm and fuzzy inside. And some of them give us courage to do things we never would believe that we would do. It's a kind of, well, if she can do it, I can do it. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be crafting stories that will move a disengaged climate bystander to become a climate hero. So that's you're not going to tell your whole story from I was born a young child and I went to high school and then da, 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 da. You're going to tell one little piece of your story, and you're going to tell it in a way that's compelling and that will inspire people, that will open their hearts, and will move them to action. So I'm going to start with a story. First of all, I want to let you know that one of the things I love about CCL is that it's got this fabulous structure. It's really like compact, and we know exactly what we need to do. And inside of that structure, we each get to find the thing that we're the best at that really makes us sing. So the thing that I love to do is I love to tell people's stories. So I'm actually in the process of writing a book. I've been traveling all around the country, and I've been interviewing folks who work with CCL. And I've interviewed more than 60 people, and I've told many, many stories. You'll see, hopefully, you'll see one of these on your table. If not, I have more to give out to you. And it tells a little bit about what I'm up to. And on the back, it says, take these 5 easy action steps to make a real difference. So it's a bookmark. Put it in the book you're reading. Subscribe to my blog. You can read more of the stories that I've been doing. So here's a story I want to tell you. This is a true story. This is a story about a CCL group in Long Island, New York. And the story took place 2 years ago. It took place right after the election, the congressional election in this particular district. This group in Long Island had always had a Democrat. Come January 2015, if I stand someplace else, can you see better?
Yeah, if the window is not behind.
The window's what's wrong.
Yeah. You don't have to go over.
Okay, that good?
In front of the podium.
Well, yeah, it's worse up there. Okay, how about here?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And I'll try not to move because I like it. Okay. So this is a group that's January 2015, Republican gets elected into office. They're like, what are we going to do? So this group, very conscientious, they decide that this member of Congress is going to have an open house at the beginning of January. They're going to go to the open house. So what do? They meet together first. They huddle, the whole group gets together, they plan, okay, Bob, you're going to talk about the science. Betsy, you're going to do the thank you. Each person had their role that they were going to do. And they get together 3 or 4 times to practice what they're going to do, CCL fashion. So comes the day of the open house. And one of the people in the group decided they were going to research the legislative aid to find out everything they could find out about the legislative aid, which came in very handy. So they're standing in this long line. See, I can't not move. They're standing in this long line of people. And the line's moving very slowly, and the legislative aide comes over and starts talking to them. Well, one of the people in the group found out that he was a new dad. So and she's like a new grandmother. So they're sharing, you know, children's stories. And the line keeps moving slowly. And every once in a while, Bob yanks on Ashley's shirt and says, "Don't you think I should say the da-da-da-da-da?" And Ashley's like, "Breathe, calm down, it's gonna be fine." So the line keeps snaking, and finally they get to the front of the line. What happens? The member of Congress leaves. And they're like, "Why? What? What happened?" And they're standing there like, "We don't know." And the legislative aide, who's now like their BFF, best friend, goes to say, "I'll find out. I'll go find out what's happened." So the aide comes back a few minutes later and says, "It's fine. The member's going to be back in a minute." So the member comes back. Everybody breathes a sigh of relief, and they start talking to this member. "Thank you very much." They introduce themselves. Okay, I can't do this without crying. The member says, "Stop. The reason I left is because I was getting coached by my staff. I was so afraid you were going to yell at me and scream at me and tell me all the things I'd done wrong. I didn't know how I was going to respond to you." And the group just gets quiet. And then he says, "Tell whoever is training you that they're doing a brilliant job and they should keep doing what they're doing." Not the end of the story. 2 years later, now, 17 meetings later with this member of Congress, he's one of the most recent Republicans to join the Bipartisan Climate Solutions Caucus. Okay, stories have power, right? So I carry that story with me. That story lives with me because I know that if that group in upstate New York could make that happen, what can I do? So that's what you're going to get a chance to do today. Okay, so stories have elements to them. I'm going to talk about a few elements that stories have. The first element is that they're personal and they're universal. So in this story that I told you about Ashley's group, it's personal, it's her story. She was the one who had to stand in that line and work with her group. But how many of you could absolutely relate to everything that happened in that story? Or sort of relate to it. Okay. The second thing that happened is good stories have emotion. They resonate with you at a place in your heart. So in this story about Ashley's group, for me, the emotion happened in many places, but one place the emotion happened is when their member of Congress said, "Who's training you? Whatever you're doing, keep doing what you're doing." And seriously, I really can hardly say that without crying every single time because I'm so moved by how moved he was. The third thing a good story has is tension. When I said the member of Congress went away, you're all sitting there like, what? What happened? You know, where's this going to go? And then the last thing it has, the second to the last thing it has, is feeling. I already said that, emotion. So, good. The last thing it has is a resolution. Something happens as a result of wherever you're going. So in this, the resolution is he joined the Bipartisan Climate Solutions Caucus. That's a huge resolution. Okay, so Rob, what time is it? Because I want to just keep...
11:05.
Perfect, okay. So here's what you're going to do. The first thing you're going to do is, so we're going to go through step by step. You're going to pick something, You're going to find the emotion, you're going to find the tension, you're going to find the resolution. So the first thing I want you to do is pick something that has happened for you in your time with CCL that was a courageous action that you took. And I want you to spend just a minute writing this down. I have paper and pens. Does anyone need paper or pen? Okay. Okay, here. Who else needs paper? Anyone need paper? Okay, so take 1 minute and write down some ideas of actions that you've taken that represent a courageous action.
Does it have to be CCL?
It doesn't have to be CCL, but
Or new?
yeah, it doesn't have to be CCL. Okay, 1 minute. Thank you, Lorraine. Okay, that's a minute. So some examples, share some examples of things that you wrote down. Just the incident, nothing else about it. Yeah.
My children's peers, who now have very tiny children, thank me for doing this.
So Vicki said her children's peers, who now have very small children, thank her for doing the work she's doing.
Because of their children.
Because of their children. Great, thank you. Yes, I can't see your name.
I'm Betsy.
Betsy.
More than a year ago, when I got really focused on doing endorsements, I focused on the Inland Empire, John Busey, who's a very conservative economist. And one of our members knew him. He was at a meeting, and we met at his house, and I was the lead speaker talking to this conservative economist, and I was like, you know, I'm not an economist, I'm a sociologist. I was like, oh, what can I offer? What can I say? So that was a scary.
So Betsy ended up speaking to a conservative group.
A
A single.
An economist who's like the spokesperson for the Inland Empire.
An economist who's a spokesperson for the Inland Empire. Okay, great, excellent. Jared.
It was at the CCL National Conference last year in DC, and I was in the cafeteria.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hey, I'm Jared from San Diego, and there was a CCL National Conference in DC last year, and I was getting ready for Lobby Day, and I was having breakfast, and I'd been told that every now and then a congressional representative, you'll bump into him when you're in the cafeteria. Gentleman sits down next to me, I'm preparing for all my notes, and we start up with a little small talk, and he's like, what are you guys doing here? And I'm like, oh, it's just a climate group. And I'm like, what about you? He's like, I work here. I'm like, what do you do? And he's like, I'm the 7th District Congressional Representative in North Carolina. Right? I'm like, oh, how interesting. And what party? And he's like, Republican. I'm like, oh, this is great. I've been trained for this. Let's have a conversation. And
Okay, so don't tell us anything more,
Okay.
because you're gonna, okay, that's great, thank you, thanks. Okay, one more, yes. Oh.
I was standing on the corner trying to catch people who weren't registered to vote in the last election. And I was very nervous about doing this, approaching strangers. And I was in front of Starbucks in Claremont, and I saw a friend sitting at the table talking to his parents. So I thought, I'll go talk to my friend. I know he's registered, but I'll go talk to him. And so I told him what I was doing there, and he said, oh, that's great. And I said, are your parents registered? And he said, oh, sure. And they said, no, we're not. And so I proceeded to go to the post.
Don't tell us the rest of it.
No more.
Keep us hanging. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Okay, I did. So the second thing is, which I realized I forgot, is detail. So a good story has detail in it so you can put yourself there in that story. So Jared said he was in the cafeteria. He already, started in on the story. Betsy was in the living room. So you begin to see, you begin to be able to put yourself in the story. In Ashley's story, they were waiting in line. So to allow you to actually stand inside of that other person's shoes. Okay, so take a minute and write down some of the details that were present while you were there in wherever that incident is that you were thinking of. Okay. This is speed writing, like speed dating. Okay, so I want to hear some of the details. I don't even want to know what the story is. I just want to hear some of the details that you came up with. Alan. Here comes Rob with my, Rob, turn around this way.
So this, you don't want any details. I mean, you want the details now.
Yeah, yeah.
I considered this my first involvement with CCL, and it's going to be on my birthday, so it was going to be a gift to myself.
Okay, and okay, good, good. So that's the detail, is that it's your birthday. Great, thank you. Dave.
Talking to my son-in-law, a graduate of the Naval Academy, on a tour of one of the Navy battleships.
Oh, you were on the battleship.
Well, it's a tour of a...
The tour, okay. Great, great. Ask me.
John, and we'd gone to visit at this office in the Congressional Building, a conservative Texas Republican, and we were crowded into the waiting area of the office, and the people were coming in and out, and phones were ringing, and I thought, how on earth are we going to have any kind of meaningful talk with this guy?
That's great, thank you. So we were crowded in the office, and the phones were ringing. People were coming in and out. So it puts you in the place. Grace.
I was standing on the corner holding a sign that said "Stop Climate Change," and the cars were driving by, and there were about 30 of us on either side of the boulevard. And somebody stopped and said, well, what can we do? And some of my friends were handing out little pieces of paper that said, change your light bulbs, drive less, carpool, and I still was feeling, what can I do?
Okay, great. So you were standing on a corner with a sign that said, stop climate change. And last one, yes?
We go to OLLI, which is Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at Cal State Fullerton, and I was in a writing class that I take there every week. A gentleman I've got to know fairly well named Jens was sitting in there one of our sessions and said, I just came from a climate talk and scared the hell out of me. And I said, by the way, I know a group that you could become involved in and make a difference and learn even more if you'd like. And so I introduced him to Dennis Harp, and hopefully he will start showing up. So
Great.
It's a great way to pull somebody in.
Okay, great. So you're in a writing class. So you can see how all of these set a kind of scene for the story that you're going to tell. Okay, the next piece you're going to put in is the emotion. The emotion is a really, really key piece of the story because the emotion is what ties all of us together. We, particularly if it's around vulnerability. If I I got home last night and my daughter was there and she said to me, Mom, I'm going to the airport tomorrow. I'm going to sing with a group of women. I can't keep quiet. So I don't know how many of you saw this song that's going viral now. It's women who've come together who didn't know each other before and are singing a song that was written by this woman who lives in Los Angeles. Her name is Milk. And it's this beautiful song about not being able to keep quiet. And I found that soon as my daughter said she wanted to put herself at LAX amidst who knows what, that the emotion just welled up inside of me. So for those of you who have children, for those of you who know that feeling of that risk involved, the story that brings in the emotion is something that ties us together. It's a place where we connect as humans. So take a minute to talk about the emotion that was present when you were in this particular story. What were you thinking? What were you feeling? Maybe in Jared's case, when he starts talking to this member of Congress, he's like, holy, what am I going to say? Like super nervous. Maybe that's what was going on. Oh, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. Maybe in Grace's case, it was more of a like, well, but what do I do? So what's the emotion that's going on and how do you see it manifest in your story? So take a minute to write down the emotion. Okay, we're going to segue now into we're not going to share on this one till the end, but now take another minute, take 30 seconds actually to write the resolution What happened as a result of this story?
Did we do the intention already? Was that?
The intention is to move people to open their hearts or take action or, yeah. Thank you. Okay, guess what's next? I know this is, you're now going to turn to the person sitting next to you. Okay, so if you don't have somebody to share with, raise your hand. Do we have one other? Oh, Craig, right here in the front. Oh. Okay, does everybody have somebody to share with? Okay. Okay, so I know you're super excited, but bring your attention back for a minute. Bring your attention back for a minute. Hang on, we're not. Okay, so here's what you're going to do. You know this story, so don't spend as much time with your notes. Tell the story from your heart, and you'll have 1 minute to tell your story, and then I'll have you switch, and the other person will tell their story. Okay, so the person with the shortest hair gets to tell their story first. Begin. Okay, folks, stop. Okay, so you were engaged, clearly, because you didn't want to stop. You wanted to keep listening to what was going on. So guess what we have now? Now we have a chance for somebody to come, a few people, actually, to come to the front of the room and tell their story. Now, here's what I want. This is, there are people in the room who are very comfortable in the front of the room. They would look forward to the opportunity to stand up and tell a story. That's not who I want to come up here. Because this is about our demonstration of courage. And coming up to stand up here to tell your story in front of people, if that's something that gives you shaky knees and a pounding heart,
do it.
It's good training for all the rest of the work that we get to do. So I'm looking first for somebody who's sitting there going, please don't pick me, please don't pick me, please don't pick me. Who might that be? It's the person who's going, What did you say?
Dave? I was just thinking of Dave, because he had a good story. And he's not
Okay.
going to want to share it.
That's okay, I don't mind. I was going to pick on her.
Okay, good.
No, Sue.
My story is lame. This really, I'm wasting your time. This is really a lame story.
Belt it out.
And so take a minute to tell your story.
Okay, I'll tell my lame story. Before I came here...
Is it on?
I don't know.
Put it right like this.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Before I came here, I had just been to one CCL meeting, and it sounded interesting, and I really wanted to learn more about it, so I decided with my friend to come. But I got pretty nervous about coming, and my back started hurting in that old anxiety way. because I don't know anything about science, and I'm introverted by nature, and to be with a big group of people is not easy, and I was a little afraid I'd be outed, and sure, indeed I am. So that's really all. And I came with my friend, so that was very nice, but we got caught in traffic, and it took about 7 hours to get here. And so we arrived, and then it's complicated we ended up at the airport to stay very far from everything else. It's kind of complicated to get here, and I don't know, it just took courage for me to get here. But like I say, other people had real courage, so.
That was exactly when. Okay, what I heard, Sue, thank you so much. So what you demonstrated was courage. You said, I'm an introvert. This isn't something that I do. And I'm sure that you opened something up for other people in the room who said, she just got up here and told her story. The story doesn't have to be big and fancy. It's a story about how we moved from here to here and the courage it took for us to get there. So thank you for standing up and sharing. Okay, I see we have 5 minutes left. Okay, who else would like to who else doesn't want to tell their story?
Be brave.
If there's, first, Sarah went like this in the back, and I thought she was raising her hand, and then Taylor went like this, and I thought she was raising her hand. Someone else who doesn't want to tell their story? Thank you. Okay, all right. Okay.
Thank you. Well, I came with Susan.
Hold
it
right like this, like you're going to take a bite out of it.
About a month ago, I left the comfort of my home on a Saturday morning and went to my first CCL meeting. And I also decided, as Susan did, to sign up for the conference. I have growing concern regarding climate change and fears for our Earth's health, and its preservation. I want my children and grandchildren to see and enjoy clean air, trees, animals, and to be able to breathe. I left this conference more inspired and hopeful that we can create a better environment for everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So there's something about vulnerability and willingness to stand up for what we believe in, no matter what. So thank you, Pam. Really appreciate it. So you can see that stories have power. And they particularly have power when we engage other people and we look to see how a story can move somebody from where they are to the next action they're going to take. So I encourage you, tell your stories. Listen to other people's stories, because it's through story, not science, that we're going to make the difference. Thank you. Yeah?
Can you repeat the essential elements, like it was given in detail, the emotions?
So the first thing I said was it's personal and yet universal. The second point is that it has emotion. The third point is that there's a lot of detail, so you bring somebody into the story. And the fourth is that there's a resolution. Oh, I'm sorry, and the fifth, and tension, yeah. So are there other questions? I think we have like another minute or something. Idrik.
I just wanted to say, somebody had nudged me on this very issue subject of our The other thing is that it comes. I feel like this is really loud. Anyway, the other thing is that it comes down to our personal interactions as well. So in my everyday life with family and friends, this kind of a narrative can help me and let them understand why the heck I dedicate so much of my life to this, which is a curious thing for most of the people in my immediate personal.
Yeah,
so
really
I
good
wanted
point.
to point out those two realms. That's all.
Yes, really good point. Thank you. There was another. Yes.
I want to hear what happened in Congress.
Jared, tell your story.
Yes.
Go.
Mike?
The tension worked.
Yeah, right. Seriously.
So I'll try and give you a condensed version because I have a tendency to talk too much. So this is good that I have some constraints. But yeah, it was really fascinating. So I was very candid with him, and he said, well, I've got a couple seconds. And that was sort of the tension was, is he going to let me actually talk to him about this policy? You know, so he'd never heard of revenue, carbon fee, and dividend, so revenue neutral. And so that was already a win in my book. The way I framed it is, okay, if I'm even telling him that this is a policy that exists, that just alleviated all the pressure because I was already doing something good. And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna pitch this to him. I don't know if he believes in climate change or not, and it's gonna stop there and he'll probably go about his way. So I kind of tell him about the policy, and he's like, well, what else you got? I'm like, oh, it just happens I have it here on my iPad, let me show you. So we'd had a household study done, and he kind of sees, I'm like, look, we have a map of the whole US, and he's like, can you zoom in on that? And I show him his precinct, like his district. So he looks at his district, and he's like, what does this mean? I'm like, well, based on what I'm seeing in this map, your district is actually looking like your households would benefit from this policy proposal. He's like, okay, good. And then I told him, keep an eye out for the delegation that's gonna be visiting your office later today, because it was lobby day in DC. And he's like, I look forward to either myself, I don't know if I can meet with him, but my aides will. And I had a piece of paper that was a call to action. It's like, consider joining the Bipartisan Climate Solutions Caucus. He looks at it, he's like, what is that there? I'm like, you could take it. He's like, perfect. Takes it and walks away, and that was it. Yeah.